thanks a lot for having this interview with us. Former President of Guyana, leader of the People's National Congress Reform. Sir, earlier this week you released the names that will be heading into the National Assembly, and almost immediately there were some concerns about some of the missing names from that list. Can you take us through the process? I know the party issued a statement sort of explaining how you came up with the list, but take us through the process that led to those 31 members.
Thank you very much for having me on the program, and thanks for asking that question at the start. Many people made comments without asking what was the process, and there is a process. I just want you to know, your viewers to know, that I launched the APNU AFC campaign for general and regional elections on the 1st of February 2019. And at that launch, it was really the launch of the campaign committee. I made some announcements, and people might have ignored the points I was making then. I pointed out clearly that every one of the smaller parties should aim at having at least one seat. And the value of each seat I anticipated then, and I was pretty accurate, is earned by 7,000 votes. So I started by asking every one of the smaller parties in APNU to bring at least one seat. That would have given the APNU AFC, at least 28,000 votes. And I made some other pronouncements. But after that, I would like you to know, I'd like the people of Guyana to know that there was a process. The first part of the process, that within the APNU, we met and crafted a set of core principles. And, people tease me about these 10 principles, but they were actually expanded to 12 principles. But these principles embodied the responsibility to constituents, responsibility to selecting candidates by a certain process, responsibility to the coalition, and we outlined these principles, and they were taken from the APNU into the negotiations with the AFC. So those core principles are embodied in the revised Cummingsburg Accord, which was eventually signed on the 24th of December, Christmas Eve Day last year. So from those principles, we went to the Accord, and the very principles are embedded in the manifesto. So there's a long train, and when you read the manifesto, you read the core principles, you read the Cummingsburg Accord, you'll see that they're very consistent. So it is very surprising that at this stage, people seem to be unaware of what we had agreed to for over a year. That is to say, that we are wedded to the principle of gender equality. This list now has about 13 women on the APNU side, which is about 42%. It's the closest we have ever come to gender equality. We have brought in many young people. That is one of the core principles, gender and youth representation. And later on, I had notified members of the APNU-FC that I would expect that they would be serving for not more than 3 terms, term limits. Again, this might be a new concept. I know some people have served for 18 years, 20 years, longer. And I said, you cannot change by remaining the same. You can't get over the hill if you remain in the valley. I said this clearly to my people. And I felt that after serving 3 terms, parliamentarians should give way to younger persons, and particularly to encourage that gender balance and the balance of youth, generational change. And all of these things were known. They're not a surprise to anyone. And I don't see that there needs to be any justification for persons to serve by 25, 30, 32 years. Why? How can we ever bring young people into the political system if the older folk continue to serve so long? I led the way, although I've only served 1 term as leader of the opposition in the 10th Parliament. I led the way by going out first. I led from the front. And I feel that inside the People's National Congress, I need to do more work in the districts and the regions of the groups. We put a lot of emphasis during my tour as President of Guyana in building up the local government system and having 2 local government elections in 2016, 2018. And I would like to build local democracy by encouraging greater participation in the regions and districts. I created 4 tongues, and I want to spend the period that is going to be occupied by in 12th Parliament by going out and doing more work in the regions. So it is not a backward step, it is not a punitive step, it is a forward-looking step to make sure that our party and the coalition performs better in future elections. I do not think I can do that from sitting in Parliament, being leader of the opposition. I think I can do that by working within my party in the groups and districts, and I'm very glad that the party general secretary and some other senior members of the party will be following me to do more political work within the country.
But sir, it's going to be the first time since the formation of the People's National Congress that it will not have a leader, a chairman, a vice chair, or a general secretary sitting in the National Assembly to really guide the policies or the programs of the party. And I think that is a concern that many persons have, that there's not a senior enough face among the group of politicians, while your coalition partner, the AFC, they're going with 3 or 4 of their leaders. So how do you respond to that concern?
I am satisfied that we will be properly represented in the Parliament. I embarked on a process for the 11th Parliament by bringing a large number of women, younger women, all of them younger than myself, of course, and we had 11 women in my government as ministers in between 2015 and 2020. All of them have 5 years experience. And I think they're quite experienced. Some are Minister of Education, for example, Minister of State, Minister of Public Communications. So they're there, and I do not feel that we are short of experience. And, there's always a story about young people who go for a job and said, what experience do you have? Say, I've just come out of school. Say, well, I'm sorry, you must have experience before you get a job. But how can you get a job if you don't have experience? How you can get experience if you don't have a job? So that is the conundrum. And I took the trouble in 2015 to ensure that there were many young women entrants, and they have now got at least 5 years of parliamentary service, and they will provide leadership to the younger women and other men who are coming in for the first time. I'm satisfied that we have a balanced slate, and it is the first time that we have had a slate with 13 women.
But is that going to be enough to sort of calm your supporters? Because many of them have expressed the view that Ms. Walter Lawrence, who is the current chairman of the party, is not going to be in the National Assembly to lead the charge. So what do you say to them?
Well, I would say that there are sufficient persons in the APNU AFC lineup who could give proper representation to our policies in the National Assembly. I would not be there to lead the charge, but I'll be leading the charge from Congress Place and within the regions and districts. So it is a sacrifice that has to be made, but I'm looking to the future, not to the past. I'm looking to the future, and I believe this is the correct choice. This is the right choice in selecting this particular team to lead us forward. At the start of this year, I launched a plan called the Decade of Development. It's the best plan on the table now in Guyana. PPP doesn't have a plan like that. It doesn't have a manifesto that I have seen. I've been asking people for it. And that plan calls for a team of people who are going to be serving right through to 2029. And my plan with this 12th Parliament, the list of parliamentarians who've been selected, is to ensure that there's a team of people, younger people, and at the end of this decade, they'll all be 10 years older, but they'll all be more experienced and capable of fulfilling the objectives of that plan. I am a strategic thinker, and what you see in the list that we have presented is a long-term strategy for the development of our party and our country. And it's not just a gut reaction to, putting favorites in places. I am confident that the members of the PNC understand the strategy that we've embarked on. Everything that is involved in the selection of this team has been discussed for over 18 months. There are no surprises, and they know my commitment to gender equality, they know my commitment to youth, and the list is a manifestation of those principles. We have hammered out principles ad nauseum within APNU, and everything you see, the manifesto, the campaign, the Cummingsburg Accord, are all embedded in principle. And sometimes I hear comments and criticism, but the very persons who are commenting know that these are principles which were laid down since 2019. People who speak about constituency representation know that I've asked them to bring in 7,000 votes. People who speak about candidate selection know that I've asked them to convene conferences and let the candidates be recommended by the party members themselves. These are not new things. I've been saying this for APNU is 9 years old, not 9 months, not 9 weeks. APNU is 9 years old, and they're very familiar with my concerns about the constituencies, about campaigning, and the contributions that they make to the partnership.
But do you worry, sir, that this can all sort of backfire or turn against you? You have one of your young members, James Bond, was very vocal on Facebook, making it clear he says you're not his friend. And he is worried about where the party might be heading, laying the election situation squarely at your feet. What do you say to him?
No, I don't discuss party business in the media. I will deal with criticisms inside my party. We have a party constitution, we have general council, we have a central executive, and I've had 2 central executive meetings for the month of August already. And issues concerning the lists have been discussed in the Central Executive Committee. And last week, a vote of confidence was passed in my leadership. And I'd urge critics to pay attention to what happens within the constitutional framework of the People's National Congress. We don't run by newspaper headlines and Facebook comments. We have a constitution, we have a Central Executive Committee, and we have a General Council. So I wouldn't respond to Mr. Bond. There are institutional means for dealing with matters that arise within the People's National Congress.
What would you say to persons who might be having the same feeling, the same thinking? This is a one-man show.
I would say just what I said. It's not a one-man show. I always act on advice. I always consult. And everything that has been done had to be based on advice. I cannot select, 100 people from around the country on my own, sitting down in a corner. I had to depend on advice from the regions. They've asked for lists. WPA selected a list, forwarded a list. Justice for All Party forwarded a list. All of the partners, Guyana Action Party forwarded a list. And as representative of the list, I selected from a list that had been submitted to me. I didn't dream up these names. I have the option, like any cricket captain, any sport captain, of making a selection of the team that is best capable of leading Guyana over the next decade. And those selections were based on nominations. And I can only assume that the nominations were democratically and transparently arrived at. That is, that the smaller parties would have had conferences and nominees would have come forward. I didn't think of these names myself. They were nominations coming out. I selected the persons best suited in accordance with the principles which we had been discussing and debating and had determined over the last 18 months. Gender balance, generational balance, geographical balance, all of these things are embedded in our core principles. Some people are laughing at them, call them commandments. They're not commandments, they're criteria for selection. And the whole public, everybody knows about it. It was broadcast. I don't have secrets from my party. I go to the Central Executive Committee, and these matters are discussed openly.
Sir, you had 2 Central Executive meetings. Clearly, you must have started to look back at the election process, look back at your past 5 years, where the party in government might have gone wrong. What do you think, or where do you think you might have gone wrong?
To start with, anytime a party enters government, many of the most senior party officials end up in the most senior government positions. I'm leader of the party, but I end up as president. Comrade Lawrence is general chairman, she ends up as Minister of Public Health. Comrade Ali is general secretary, she ends up as Minister of Social Protection. Ronald Bulkan is treasurer, he ends up as Minister of Communities. So what happens that the governmental functions suck the oxygen out of the political structure. So what I'm doing is a recognition of the fact that by spending too long in government, you could actually deprive the party of some of the functions which these high officials should be performing. And my action in not going back to Parliament is a recognition that I need to spend more time in building up my party. This is going to help us to perform better at local government elections and the next general and regional elections. I'm not disengaging from politics. I am changing the form of my engagement. And I feel that at this time in Guyana's history, my engagement should be more within the party and the constituencies and the regions.
Where do you think you went wrong as a government? That now have you sitting on the outside of government. Where did you go wrong?
We didn't go wrong. Wrong was done to us. As far as I'm concerned, we had a very robust campaign. It's the best campaign I've ever seen in my life in this country. And we now have a petition which is being prepared to take to the courts. We feel that there has been a substantial number of inadmissible, fraudulent, invalid votes. And I don't think we went wrong at all. I do believe we could have done much better. And at the local government elections in 2018, as you know, I fell ill at that time, and I wasn't able to complete the campaign. I was actually on the campaign trail when I had to leave suddenly. But I've campaigned, I've been through about 18 rallies, and I think we did quite well. There's no wrongdoing on our part. There certainly was wrongdoing by other people who stuffed the ballot boxes and who created the confusion that we've had over a 5-month period. We now have to go to the courts. But bear in mind that at every stage along the way, my behavior, my personal conduct was guided by the Constitution of this country and by I awaited the declaration of the Commission. And when the declaration came, people were surprised that things went so smoothly. That I said I'd obey the law, and I did obey the law. And the Election Commission is the only authority to pronounce on the elections. And I was patient, and that was done on Sunday the 2nd of August, and I accepted it. That's what I said, I've been saying for 18 months. When the declaration is made, I will accept it. So there's no wrongdoing on our part, but we have gone to we will go to the courts with a petition to show we have a dossier of hundreds of abuses and abnormalities and straightforward fraud committed during that period.
But clearly, one might want to argue that regardless of what you're seeing was fraud and what you have now, and if there were more votes still for the party, then you could have outdo the other party still with whatever they were doing on the other side.
I agree. I have always said that the two major political blocs are near equal. I try not to use the word landslide. I actually was aiming at 35 seats. I felt, and I told my party members and the coalition members that we should aim to get about 250,000 votes, 250,000 votes. We fell short. I'm not blaming anyone, but I'm going out on the ground, I'm going to the regions to try to find those missing votes and to encourage people to understand the vision of the coalition, that we will give them a better life. We will use the money from the petroleum industry to provide better education, better employment opportunities, better infrastructure. I think we have a superior message, and I do believe that my role on the ground will contribute to a larger percentage of the votes. As I said, I expected to get 35 seats. We got 31, and I will work harder to get that 250,000 votes. We fell short, but as I said, there has been some interference in the elections, and we hope that the courts would identify those wrongdoings. We have a dossier of abuses, and we take those abuses and irregularities to the court. The Election Commission said it is not a court, it's not a tribunal, and they declined. I didn't want to say refused, they declined to examine our complaints. But we submitted those complaints long before the results were declared.
But do you think you'll be able to still galvanize the grassroots support that you need? Because you speak to people out there, and they're saying, they couldn't reach this minister, they couldn't meet that minister, they didn't do enough for their communities. Their communities are still the same as they were 5 years ago, and these are areas that consider themselves your strongholds, areas that consider themselves solidly behind you.
Well, Gordon, that is anecdotal. I did say to you that once elected political officials go into government, there's a tendency for them to focus more on governmental function and less on party political functions. And what you're saying more or less admits that there is some loss of energy when people go into government offices, and they have to attend cabinet meetings, they have to go to parliament, and it's sometimes very difficult. We have a system in Guyana in which the legislative is not completely divorced from the executive body. So a person who's a minister is also a representative, a member of parliament, and also represents a constituency. He or she has at least 3 functions to perform. If he's Minister of Communities, for example, Mr. Bulkan was also representative of Region 8, and he's also got to perform functions as the treasurer for the People's National Congress. Now, there's only one of him, and there are, the possibility that there be some loss of energy among those 3 different functions. Nobody's a Superman. But what I'm saying now is that by my going into the field, I will identify the sources of those discontinuities between governmental and political functions. I am very confident that we will regain the support when people see us. They will understand our message better. And the second aspect of your question, or the second question I'd like to answer, is that it is not true that people are unfamiliar with the work we've done. You go to East Bank Babis, and people, as I repeat very frequently, somebody at Plectan, because it is the happiest day of my life. I can bathe now, I have running water. You go to some areas that never had lights. You go to Sophia, which used to have pothole roads. We gave them a ring road for the first time with lights, so they can, you had, women who couldn't get to hospital because of the roads there. You go into the 4 regional towns. We've created 4 regional towns, and I can tell you, Bartica, they put up a big thing praising the coalition for making Bartica a town. Mabaroon used to be a village, is now a town. Look at the development on the ground. So people on the ground know what APNU AFC coalition has done. They know what the PNC has done. And we have brought about changes in their lives. We have increased, you had sweeper cleaners who were getting $32,000 a month, now getting $72,000 a month. We had pensioners who were getting $7,000 and $8,000 when I went into the 10th Parliament. They're now getting $20,000 a month. I get thank you notes from these people. So these are not people who go on Facebook and criticize and abuse. These are people who are truly grateful for what happened over the last 5 years. And I am satisfied that the bulk of those people, whatever number the commission assigns to us, 217,000 or what, those people are satisfied that the APNU, is out there to bat for them, and the PNC has been working for them, and I will continue to work for the people of this country, and to improve the quality of their life. In every single field, in education, people used to complain about the cost of getting their children to school. They now have free buses, bicycles, boats.
What was your problem then messaging? Because the people in Linden or in Letem might not know what's happening in Sophia. Sophia knows what's happening in Sophia. So did your government fail at properly informing its membership and the electorate at what was happening?
No, the people on the Linden waterfront saw me giving a boat for the children. The people at Kumaka saw me giving a bus, saw me distributing bicycles outside my party headquarters. You know, the people in Madia saw me launching the tongue. The people in Bartica saw me, you know. It is not true. You know, people all over this country have seen me. I don't think it's a question of messaging. I think that they understand what the party has done to them, and that's why this is the first time my party and the coalition together was able to garner 217,000 votes or whatever they've assigned to us. It's a big score, and it has increased every year, every election since 20. This is my third election, and there's always been a marked increase from the previous election. So we have to be doing something right. The critics are not the majority. The majority are the people out there who don't go on Facebook and yell and rant and scream. Those are the people for whom I go to work, and that's why I've made this decision that we should send a team of younger people and experienced people go out in the field and continue to mobilize support for the People's National Congress.
In about a minute, what would you say to those young members, especially who are heading into Parliament for the first time? What's your message to them? How are you going to keep them in check?
I don't have to keep them in check. They are members of the party already. That's how they got on the list in the first place. They worked in the campaign. That's how they got on the list. I urge them to continue their service to the People's National Congress or to the other coalition partners. I urge them to ensure that the solidarity is preserved, because we don't want to see a reappearance of Charandas. And I urge them to look to the future, to pursue the objectives that we have laid out in our decade of development and continue to serve the people of this country. That's my message to them.
Thanks a lot, sir, for your time.
Thank you for your time.